Okay, it's gonna get started. Yeah, welcome to my session. One of my favorite topics, HomeLab, the ultimate HomeLab guide. I'm gonna talk about why, my history about my HomeLab, the actual state, and the planned future scenarios. So my name is Marc Huppert. I'm a principal consultant or principal architect at Computacenter in Germany. I'm doing the VMware stuff since right now 25 years. I started with ESXi 1.0, kind of pain in the ass, get this thing up and running back in the old days. So we're talking about HomeLab. First of all, the question, why? Why should you start? Why did I start? Then a little bit of the history about my HomeLab history, the HomeLab today, and a small wrap-up, including future plans. Why investing in a HomeLab? For example, it is an invest into your career, invest into yourself. For example, all the Credly badges, 172, my actual Credly status. A lot of things to consider, a lot of things to prepare for. Invest into yourself, so knowledge, know-how creation, creating demos, prepare for trainings. My students love it when I'm doing official VMware trainings and they get an off-topic question that it's not possible to perform inside those official labs. I'm gonna jump over to my lab and then it's gonna perform it over there. It's kind of, yeah, cool. Use it for exam preparations, and I'm doing a lot of exams. Every single VMware exam that is available, I've done it minimum once, so most of them several times. Why did I start and where did I start? We start all small, and back in the days, 2006, one custom-built machine, a small one, a used IBM RAID controller from eBay, yeah, just a small system, gigabit network. The next one, maybe you remember those physical machines, the small HP microservers. Kind of nice, a little bit of hardware from the data center, 8 gigs of memory. Yeah, in the past, 2007, it was a little bit okay, but not that much. And then more and more customers invested into 10 gigs and fiber channel networks. Yeah, and maybe it was the point where it's getting out of control in my environment because I installed 2 Mac Minis, including those crazy Thunderbolt PCIe expansion systems. Thunderbolt is a great technology because it expands the PCIe bus, which ESXi totally could use. So 10 gigabits, including fiber channel. Yeah, my message was I want 10 gig at home, 2009. At this point, 2011, Data Center 1 gets born. So Data Center 1, which is in the basement of my house, was built of some Apple Mac Minis, including the rack version of those Thunderbolt expansions, including a custom-built fiber channel system. At those time, 2011, most of my customers are fiber channel based. They have 10 gigabit networks. So I have the same at home. But at this point, only one data center. It's getting better. Several years later, this is the environment of my HomeLab, still one data center, but at this point, 2 different internet connections. One cabled one LTE version. You have to become high available also in the part of the internet connection. Same as my customer's gonna do. And then the first implementation of maybe experimental with a second room. I talked to my wife and I need more space for the HomeLab. And she acknowledged, okay, you can get a second room. So Data Center 2 was born. We'll talk about that off topic. 2016, I was able to acquire a used Dell Vertex chassis, including some of those blade servers. Kind of cool technology because you have dedicated storage, shared SAS storage, normal spinning disks as well as SSDs. You have 4 different blades, and then dedicated PCIe slots that could be mapped to the different servers. Kind of cool. I did some GPUs inside it, officially not supported. I chatted with Dell support and I said it's not supported, but I could get it working. And even Dell support says, that's not allowed, but how did you get it working? Kind of cool. Yeah, and then network part. Customers go beyond 10 gig, so why shouldn't I? So 40 gig, Dell switch, a used one. It's a 1U switch. The main problem, the noise of those fans. Especially if you plug DAC cables in it, it is okay. But when you install any optical connection, the fan's gonna go up from 8,000 RPMs to 16,000 RPMs. It's kind of hard to explain to my wife what's so loud in the basement of our house. 40 gig, kind of affordable. Come on, one back. Because those cards getting really, really, really cheap. I don't know why, but on eBay Ireland, one of those cards gonna get sold for 20 euros, so 25 bucks. Shouldn't be a problem. The most expensive part are those cables at that time. So 40 gig was my backplane running. And then I'm gonna invest more into dedicated internet connections. At this time, 2 internet connections and those technology, the VeloCloud thing comes up, the SD-WAN part. So I'm talking to one of my VMware colleagues, and I was able to acquire 2 of those boxes and did a pre-sales engagement, a customer pre-sales engagement at my data center at home. Those boxes are still inside, and as you can see there, the cabling, kind of strange. The cables, the colors doesn't have any kind of meaning. I'm gonna change that in the future. I'm gonna tell you in a few minutes. And then vSAN. vSAN for every use case. Different hardware systems, the Dell Vertex, Fujitsu systems, IBM systems, yeah, including ARM systems. So those are those small Raspberry Pis where ASXi on ARM could be installed. Those are running at this time at maybe data center number 3, my garage. So data center 1 and 2 at the basement, data center 3, old garage. At this time, it was the Dell chassis, my main system, several other systems also hooked up and running. Those are old systems from customers. Most of the time I'm talking to my customers, what are you gonna do with your old hardware? Yeah, we're gonna throw it away. Okay. I maybe could open the trunk of my car and then, yeah, throw it away this time. The main limit and the main issue is, you might wonder, memory, as always. Especially when doing vSAN, you need a lot more of memory inside your host to support all the disk groups. I started with vSAN with today called the OSA hybrid environment, so spinning disks, then switching over to all flash. And right now I'm using nearly only ASA at my home. So I'm gonna talk about that. Come on. So the ASA part, hold on. So the actual scenario 2021, huge network invest, 100 gig at home. Right now, I have customers who doesn't have 100 gig at their service right now. I'm using it since 3 years at my home environment. Not only, first of all, direct connected, so DAC cables between 2 different servers. Yeah, how should you do when you have a 4-host vSAN cluster? You're gonna need a switch. So I'm gonna invest into one of my heaviest investments, an NVIDIA 16-port 100 gig switch. The network itself, come on, it's always clicking far too much. Sorry about that. Use the old one. So my 2 data center scenarios, data center 1, data center 2. It's now called a solution center for customer pre-sales engagements, for training scenarios, and for exam preparation. So this solution center 2023 also includes NSX as well, and then the RV network part. So we had a lot of customers who are going to invest into those load balancer scenarios, a lot of training stuff going on. So why not also implement it at home? What about the actual hardware? So right now, nearly every scenario that I'm running is based on Visa Express Storage architecture. Last year, there was an opportunity from Intel to get borrowed hardware, lifetime borrow, of those NVMe devices. Those NVMe devices could be attached into an NVMe-ready server, but none of my servers are NVMe-ready officially. How to get started with those drives, with those U2 drives? There are special PCIe adapters. So 2 of those drives into 1 adapter, into 1 PCIe slot, power up the system, and it only shows up 1. What's going wrong here? What's wrong? You need to play with PCIe slot for bifurcation to configure the PCIe lanes that are going to be attached to the different slots. After tweaking out this scenario, it powers up and it performs very well. So minimum requirements of 4 NVMe devices for express storage architecture, done. The next scenario where I have heavily invested is the business continuity disaster recovery scenario. So I have data center 1. I'm replicating with Site Recovery Manager to data center 2. What's going to happen when both data centers, both run at my house, going to be down, fire, water, whatever, human error, my son, my wife. So heavily investing into BCDR. Nearly today, all of my servers are old Dell 14G generation systems. So those are, I'm able to acquire them from a customer, huge investment over there. And especially, I'm trying to figure out getting the maximum out of the system. Not from a performance perspective, from a power perspective, power consumption perspective. I'm going to talk about that in a few moments. And how to store backup data on site efficiently. I'm investing in 2024 into spinning disks. Why? Because 18 terabytes per drive. I was looking for 20 terabyte SSD, checking the price. No way. No way. And then I'm going to invest in into these 3.5-inch spinning hard disks, how to put them into a 2U Dell server. There is an option, officially not supported within my environment, but I was able to acquire this storage mid-layer. It's a dedicated hardware cage fitting inside your server. The main problem underneath it are your CPU and memory modules. So you need special CPU coolers, the low profile one. You need performance fans to get all the air through it. Officially, those mid-size trays only supported if you have the back tray installed, which I don't have. So discussions with Dell, and they told me, you wasted your money, you wasted your time, it's not going to work. Let's figure it out. It works. But I have to install a dedicated second RAID controller, attaching this mid-plane to the second RAID controller, and then inside the system itself, a PERC RAID controller and an old IBM RAID controller, only for those spinning disks. Is XI gonna have fully utilization of it for dedicated NVMe devices, including NVMe PCIe devices? Why? I'm using 3 different backup vendors on that system. Virtualized, first of all, Veeam. Second, it is the Dell Power Protect. And the third, I'm going to use a Cohesity cluster. a virtual Cohesity cluster on it. The Cohesity one is my main backup scenario. That is going to be replicated to a second Cohesity in data center 1. So all data from data center 1 and 2 gets back up to Cohesity in the main data center, then replicated to Cohesity in the second data center, then archived and offloaded to AWS Oregon, then offloaded to an old LTO4 tape drive, and those tape drives going to be offloaded to my parents' home. So my data is safe. What about your data? The newest addition to my environment, the holodeck. How to get familiar with VCF. All the customers, I have thousands of questions about VCF. You can attend a training, that's the basic, how to configure it. But especially German customers asking about how to create a stretch cluster. Right now within VCF, including 5.2, it is the biggest pain in the ass you can get to configure a stretch cluster within VCF. You have to use the API Explorer and all this kind of stuff. How to start with the VCF dedicated environment. Holodeck is a nice solution, but the minimum requirement is 384 gigs of memory. Because it is all nested, you have this cloud builder, dedicated vCenters, dedicated ESXi hosts, and you have the option to do a consolidated design or a standard design. In my environment, I was able to get some memory from eBay, which is quite expensive, 1.5 terabyte inside the system, because I wanted to get started with different VCF environments. Without that scenario, it wouldn't be possible, from my perspective, to pass the new VMware VCF deployment exam. It's completely impossible just with training. And trust me, I am a trainer. I'm going to perform those trainings. You need to have hands-on experience. How to get hands-on experience with systems where sometimes 12 hosts are required. Kind of hard. So this is my biggest investment right now, including the newest toy from NVIDIA, an NVIDIA L4 GPU. And playing with AI workloads requires a GPU from NVIDIA, of course. The main problem is how to get licenses for those GPUs. You could play with test keys. I was able to acquire some, not for resale licenses, so 12-month long period. It's going to work and perform very well on this scenario. The VCF environment itself, so I created 2 different environments. The first environment, side A, the standard design. Standard design includes all flash hosts, 11 different hosts. 11 nested ESXi hosts with everything deployed that VCF 5.2 has to offer, including all the area stuff and all this kind of things. Most of our customers want to know how long does it take to update such an environment. To be honest, 5 days. Main part, planning and preparation. A normal vSphere admin is going to perform patching and everything. When something goes wrong, I'm going to call support. Don't do this on a VCF part. Do all the pre-checks, and if the pre-checks are going to be red, call support, fix it before applying patching. That's a main thing in VCF. That is a standard design. Standard design includes 4 hosts for a management domain, 4 hosts for a dedicated vSAN workload domain, and some customers don't want to use vSAN for their workload domains. They want to use, for example, NFS. So I created 3 additional hosts attached to my NFS, which is connected via 25 gig. So a nice working environment, but that's the standard design. The second environment that I created, those are the vCenter view. The second environment that I created is the consolidated design. 8 dedicated hosts. I'm going to spin up the management domain with 4 hosts, commissioning for additional hosts, and then the most frustrating part, the API Explorer. to create a stretched cluster of it, including a witness node. From a vCent perspective, I could configure that within 30 minutes. From a VCF perspective, it took nearly a day. You need a lot of experience. You need preparation. How to do it inside your environment. Check out HoloDeck. Maybe install it in your production environment because it is an isolated environment. And if you have 384 gigs of memory available anywhere in your environment, I totally suggest to test it out. Experience is everything. Right now, that's my HomeLab. Sometimes, especially within trainings, students tells me you have more hardware in your house than I'm going to call production. Yes? 30,000 kilowatt hours per year, not per month, per year. Especially right now in Germany, I'm paying 35 cents per kilowatt hour. Yep. I have solar power on my roof. The main point, and my last blog post was about that, my thoughts were, okay, this is my lab and the lab of my son right now, 15 years old. So it's going to be a version of me, a mini-me. When we are sleeping, our lab just going to perform replication and backup, nothing else. What could we do to reduce the power consumption? First thought, shut down things. I tested it out. It goes horribly wrong because shutting it down on the evening and then power it up again took me 4 days. So not an option. Second option, why not discuss all the different features that the hypervisor performed, that the Intel CPU has been capable of, as well as the Dell UEFI settings. So I used all of my connections to the different vendors, and we set up a Microsoft Teams session. 7 hours, 2 VMware people, 2 Intel people, and 3 Dell people. It was a great discussion, and the first sentence that I said, I don't want to hear it's not supported. I don't care. I just need to get it working. So my option was to throttle my environment at night, power it up again without shutting anything down on a day basis where I'm performing things in my lab. At the end of this 7-hour Teams session, we're all happy. We're all saying the same. This has never happened before. VMware, Intel, and Dell in a session discussing power reducing or power throttling options. Several options from Intel are available, P states as well as C states. Normally, 28 cores, 2.7 gigahertz running at daytime. At night, those same 28 cores runs on 1.2 gigahertz with different C states, most of the time sleeping. You probably all know the ESXi energy settings. Balanced, which is default, you have high performance. On the daytime, my environment runs on high performance. On the nighttime, I'm playing with the different options. Took me 3 weeks to get all the different BIOS options. Changing it, testing it, measure it, change it, testing, measure, and again. I was able to use a simple PowerShell script on a timely basis. Where I go to sleep, it's going to throttle the entire environment. I was able to reduce it right now to 18,000 kilowatt hours. That's insane. It's just my HomeLab. And I did a blog post about that. The hands-on lab guys are pretty looking into it because in a huge amount of resources, they may be going to waste. And actually, we have customer projects who recognized my blog post and said, is it supported that I'm going to do it in production? Those customers did service requests with VMware, with Dell, with all the different other vendors, and they all going to say, yes, why not, but it's never going to perform before. It has in my environment. So a huge point to reduce the energy consumption just by throttling your environment. What's the downside? The backup window increases because the cohesity backup and the replication took longer. In my case, 58 minutes longer. I don't care. But it's a point to consider when you're going to, guys, perform it in your production environment. Test it. It is officially supported. So different BIOS settings on your server, dedicated custom energy policy settings with an ESXi, with 5 advanced options inside ESXi to throttle down the system. And the next option that I'm going to perform is to increase my PowerShell script that is going to talk to my solar power. When there's enough sun, go to high performance. There's not enough sunlight, so not enough power is going to be generated. Switch it, for example, to low power or the custom mode, which I'm using at night. Does it really make, sorry. So, is it worth all the effort? Definitely yes. Getting knowledge, getting experience without my HomeLab environment. Without it, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be able to pass my VCDX. I wouldn't be able to become a better architect, a better consultant. On my daily workbase, I'm creating documents. Customers don't let me play with the hardware anymore. That's the reason why I'm doing it at home. Does it really make a difference? Absolutely. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today, where I'm today. And should you start with a HomeLab? Yes, of course. It doesn't have to be bad as like mine. So thank you very much. See you in 30 minutes. Oh, okay. 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 So 30 minutes spare time. What are your thoughts? What are your questions? The battery backup. Every rack is configured with a dedicated, with a dedicated UPS system inside the rack. Those are outside the rack, those are on top of the rack. So the estimated time without energy is right now 42 minutes. Yeah, those are huge UPS systems. My next thoughts are, what about the diesel generator? Yeah, I checked with in the past with IBM branded UPS systems because it could acquire cheaply from customers. The main problem with it, it's IBM branded and there's no framework around it or software or something like that. Then I switched over to APC, the old ones with those dedicated networking cards that you have to configure locally and all this kind of stuff. But what happens if this VLAN is going to die or something happen, you don't have any monitoring? Then I talked to the APC guys and I said, this is my home environment, and I sent them several pictures. They couldn't believe it, it's a home environment. And they mentioned we have this new generation called the Smart Connect. So no local connection within my network, just internet. So, and only with the internet connection, you have this push service on your mobile phone and all this stuff when something goes wrong, including there's a firmware update or something like that, or battery warranty is going to get out. Yeah, so I'm running pretty well on APC.
Have you thought about down as well? Like you're talking about there's some light in your solar array. Well, adding functionality to hold everything down and trying to keep everything up this far down.
I thought several years ago I invested into PDUs, so network attached PDUs with a nice website where I could power everything down. From those 43 physical servers, actually only running 7 running 24/7. So if I imagine power everything up, there's going to be maybe per month. Yeah. Great question. How to cool it? It is all air cooled, no AC. All air cooled. How is it possible? How do we gonna customers perform that? They have a cold area in front of the servers and a hot area behind it. I did the same. I rearranged all racks to have a cold area, and my house has a dedicated ventilation system for the heating inside the basement, as well as the previous owner created a wine cellar. It sounds more than it is. It is just a room, which is now data center 2, with a dedicated ventilation system. So it is enough to get cold air into it. That's the front of the machines. The back of the machines are our normal basement where my wife is going to dry clothes behind my racks. It's true. Yeah, energy efficiency. I was thinking about why not use all the hot air, convert it into something. I am in discussion with several vendors who have solutions for it, and they all told me the same: you're not producing enough heat. That's my problem. Power up more servers, yeah. Okay, second question. Okay. Financial perspective, replacing hard drives with SSDs. No. From a financial perspective, definitely no. From a performance perspective, from mean time between failures and all this kind of stuff, and it was time for the hard disk, except the 18 terabyte ones, to get away, to retire. And when I'm investing into new systems, all of those Dell servers have only 2.5-inch SSD slots or HDD slots. I'm investing into SSDs. Yeah. Monitoring. A small Linux appliance, creating a website that it's showed up on my main workstation. It has 4 displays, 2 8Ks and 2 4Ks. The upper right on the 4K, this website shows up where different Linux-based, Nagios-based scripts and SNMP is going to do all the monitoring stuff, including area operations, because I don't have to pay for all those 800 cores. Yeah, all the stuff is available. But from a financial perspective, first, cost for the servers, cost for the hardware, cost for network switches. Second, cost for all the software. Microsoft MSDN, maybe VMAC Advantage, vExpert, vCDX, access to licenses. And then the third one, the maintenance. How to update all this kind of stuff. Normally, when I'm at customer sites around Europe, I'm sleeping 3 nights a week at a hotel. When I'm done with the customer work, what to do with my time at the hotel? Opening the Horizon console and playing at home. Yeah. No, I replaced the UDM, the Ubiquiti UDM, with the VeloCloud version. Those are the old VeloClouds. This is the new one. More powerful, and actually I have 4 different internet connections running at my house. So 3 cable one and 1 LTE version. My son is going to tell inside his school, there are two things at our home always available. It's internet and power. And for example, the cabling. I changed and it took me 2 weeks. And including the work of my son and my daughter. My daughter is going to print all the cabling flags. My son is going to place it onto the cable. And I have a huge documentation that is not running at this environment. It is running at the home lab of a colleague. Why? When I'm doing kind of strange things and everything's going to broken up, I don't have access to the documentation. But and then power up the LTE connection on the iPad, getting to my documentation on my colleague's home lab. Yeah, it's definitely a cool thing. And the recabling and repatching and everything, every cable color has a meaning. Orange is power, PDU, APC, and all this kind of stuff. Blue, access point, network connections. Yellow, ID rec or hardware management. Red, DMZ. Every single cable has two cable flags, one in front, one at the end. Every single network cable, console cable, power cable, fiber channel cable, every fucking single cable.
Now, did you choose numbers on either side to match the solution, or the words on the cable?
Words on the cables that aligns with the netbox documentation. Yeah.
You're a netbox guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I love netbox.
But it's not running on that environment. It's running on a colleague's home lab. So I've always access to it.
That's good.
High availability.
We had hit by CrowdStrike.
Yeah.
And everything internal was inaccessible. Fortunately, we didn't need the data in that box, but it underscored having the documentation outside of your production environment.
Yeah. I'm using Netbox for documentation. I have infoblox systems for DHCP, DNS, and all this kind of stuff. Kind of hard getting those NFR licenses. But pretty impressive, especially in combination with RV load balancer that sometimes customers like to see. So it is a real production environment running at my house.
How has your security stack changed throughout different iterations of your home environment?
It changed a lot. The later thing that I'm thinking about is rack access through RFID or something like that. Just to show my son what customer's going to do right now, how to configure it. AD authentication, next thing, Okta, two-factor, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'm always trying to implement everything that a customer would do to show it, to get experience. Yeah.
Enterprise solutions.
Yeah.
Stack,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. But none of the ESXi hosts are part of the domain. My vCenter is not part of the domain. You know why? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, of course. Of course. VCDX181.com. That's me. That's my website. You can find everything. My entire journey on the home lab, starting 2006 until today. VCDX181.com.
New stuff comes in, the old stuff comes in.
Yeah.
And then the new stuff comes in, and then all of a sudden, like I take 1% of what you do and turn it into a product.
Oh, thank you very much.
That's why I asked about the cabling.
Yeah.
Because I ran an MSP years ago, and we didn't just numbers on the back. Because we kind of swapped the cables around, we didn't want to keep money for flags. But for the urban environments, words are much easier. What is easier?
And for example, I've experimented with 3 different flag vendors because within 6 months, heat and fans, and they're all laying on the floor. Yeah. Pardon? Public cloud. My employer has an option that I am allowed to store data in the cloud. For example, I'm using it inside my Cohesity. I could showcase it for customers, how to back up an archive, but I'm not allowed to show a restore of my data from AWS because roundabout there's 13 terabytes of data. That's my entire life, 13 terabytes of data, replicated through Cohesity, archived to AWS Oregon and AWS Frankfurt, so 2 availability zones. The point to restore those 13 terabytes cost me in Germany nearly 9,000 euros. Just the restore. AWS has a restore calculator. Do it wisely. So my employer says, it's okay if you're gonna spend it to store it, but if you need it, you have to pay on your own. Yeah. Yes, on one system, I had this old Asus card, which has 4 M2 SSDs on it. It's from my old workstation. I plugged it in as a, you're welcome. I plugged it in into a server, and it worked from BIOS 2.18, relatively new, because in the past it didn't work. Yes. Yeah, it could be used. But you need to upgrade the R47 BIOS first. Yeah, I have R47 and R47XD machines, as well as the correlating blades running in the Vertex, so M640. So all 14G generation. Yeah. And 2 of those servers are kind of special because they don't have any boot device. They have only NVMe. The UEFI bootloader from Dell is not NVMe bootable. It is, it said, yeah, why? At discussions with the Dell guys, why? 15th generation, it works. 16th generation, it works. But 14th generation, and they told me, there's no way that you're gonna configure NVMe. The machine, you could order it in the old days with the 2 micro SD cards. And there is an open source project, can't remember the name right now, where you can load a bootloader onto those SD cards. This dedicated Linux bootloader has an NVMe boot environment. And then I'm gonna trick the, yeah, and it worked. On an NFR-based version of, as a VCDX, you have access to licenses, as well as a vExpert. So there comes my licenses from. VMAC Advantage. It is not capable of 800 cores. You have to discuss with them, but it is possible to start there. Yeah. 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 And especially right now, there's no free ESXi hypervisor anymore, but there are enough YouTube videos where people showing their free hypervisor license keys. Search within those YouTube videos to find it. It's possible. Actually, nearly 1,000. Yeah. But there are some of them are HCI bench VMs, normal. Everything that is available from VMware is running in my environment. Everything that is available, for example, from NVIDIA. So NVIDIA AI Enterprise, NVIDIA vGPU is running inside my environment. Nearly everything as a high availability configuration. For example, area operation is running in continuous availability mode, so 5 different VMs. Yeah, and so it sums up. Yeah, that's the hardest part, to get those NVIDIA licenses. Yeah.
You pick up the phone, they answer. All terribly expensive. No, I don't know about.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the 740, if I'm booting from like an SSD mirror on SATA, because I'm just going to get one going on kids.
Yeah.
I can with your BIOS, it should just pick up all 4 SSDs. Just